Hello and welcome to TorontoWebsiteDeveloper.com. I am Peter Orski, the Toronto website developer specializing in the Drupal content management system. And this is another video tutorial that I've created. Today we're going to look at overriding Simplenews module, specifically the subscription block. And with that we're going to look at some custom module development. So you're going to get a little taste of both, but it should be a pretty good tutorial. Just before we get started, let's take a look at specifically what we're going to end up doing today. So this is a Simplenews subscription block, and you'll see, for those that are familiar with Simplenews, I've gone ahead, removed that the save button for anonymous users, and I've removed the radio buttons. And I've done that through a custom module that we're going to look at. But on that note, additionally, if you find these tutorials useful, please do subscribe to the newsletter. All that will be is an email notification saying, hey, I've put up a new Drupal video tutorial. Make sure you don't miss them. Kind of keeps you in the loop. Additionally, I made another change to the site. You can now click to receive comment notifications. I thought about making it automatic if you posted a comment, but some people just post and don't care about follow-up. I didn't want you to get inundated with emails. So if you want to follow up, if you've asked me a question and you're waiting for my feedback, click that. You can receive comment notifications. When you actually click it, you'll get an email address asking you what you're looking for there. So let's dive right into it. Let's actually, I'm going to go back to my site. And you'll see we can compare here. We have an email address, it looks like an old form, right? Compared to something with a little bit of JavaScript. JavaScript is what we're going to be covering in the next tutorial, tutorial 2 of 2. Put a image button instead of, your custom text button, no radio buttons, that kind of thing. So you can see what we're trying to work towards here. So let's go ahead, we're going to enable themer info and take a look at how we're actually going to do this. Just a couple points of clarity here. So you'll see when I have devel, I can click on the whole box, or I can click on the small box. The whole box is actually being called from block.tpl.php, so you don't want to do that because it's not actually what we're looking at. You want to look at the information that's being provided by simplenews.block.tpl.php. So if we look at the array here, you're going to notice that if you're familiar with forms, we don't have any actual form information here. So if we look at the file used, the simplenews.block.tpl.php, we don't have access to it. Let me log in so you can see this. You'll see this line here, see template preprocess Simplenews block. Normally you would override, if you were doing search form, you would do it in template preprocess function, but because you're actually affecting the block and not the form itself for Simplenews, you can't access a lot of the attributes that we want to change. You can only access the block variables that are being passed in. So that's why we actually have to create a custom module to override Simplenews, which makes it a little bit tougher than say overriding a search field or a regular form that would be listed on your site. Yeah, so I mean that's the challenge that we face. Now, to understand specifically, we're going to be using api.drupal.org, but you'll take a look here, just so I can show you quickly. The quick start? No, we don't want the quick start, we want the reference. So form attributes are actually handled here specifically within these, again, attributes. So these are what we actually want to change, and when you look at this, so let's just see here, one of the ones that we're going to be changing is, what's a good example here? The submit attribute. So if we opened up the themer info and we look at this this block specifically that Simplenews is passing in, if we go into the array, we don't find that anywhere here, right? We get the form, but it's already rendered right into HTML, so you can't really affect that or make any changes to it. So enter custom module development. Let's go ahead and let's dive right into that. We're going to create a new file here, and for those that are unaware, this is kind of going to be a crash course. This is not meant to teach you module development, but I will be covering some of the basics. So if you have any questions, email me. Maybe I'll do a tutorial on module development, although Lullabot already has an awesome video tutorial. I think it's $99 or so, immediate download. You can get it in HD, but they go over some pretty intense things. So if you're looking for something on module development that's not a specific question that can be handled in 10 minutes, I highly recommend you get that. I think it's like a 4 or 5 hour video. So we're going to create a PHP file. Sorry, we're not going to create a PHP file. We're going to create just a text file. Excuse me. So any module that you develop, you only need 2 files. You can get way further into it, but the 2 files that you need are an info file and a module file. Info file actually talks to Drupal, tells them about your, or tells it about your module, and the module file is actually your code that does something. So you'll see here I've got I actually use Komodo Edit, so I've got a couple preset things here. But getting right into it, for our info file, we're going to call this the SN override module. The description: this will provide a override for the Simplenews block subscription block, not block subscription. Right, and package is going to be mail. What package actually is when you're looking at this on the modules page in your Drupal site. Package is the different groups that are collected together, and Simplenews is actually contained in the mail. So we just want to keep that all together. Lastly, this other line, that's just an SVN thing for Drupal. If you're going to contribute this back, you don't need it. It's only because I'm using a template for my info file. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to save this right into my sites all, just so that it's easier for us working on it. So bear with me while I navigate the tree here. So anytime I do custom development, I like to do a custom folder, and then in here, let's go ahead and we're going to create a new folder, and this folder has to be the same name. Has to be the same name as your module, and you'll see here. So we have to have SN override.info. That name has to stay consistent. I don't know what's going on with my cursor though. That name has to stay consistent for Drupal to find your module and enable it. So now that we have that, the other thing that we have to do is we have to create a .module file. So let's go ahead and we're going to save this as .module, just so that we don't forget. Just a good habit to get into. So .module, save this, and whenever you create a module file, one of the things that you should do is create a .info file. So main module, we're not going to call this the main module. We're going to call this custom module for overriding Simplenews right? I mean, you could do all your overrides in here for Simplenews if you wanted to. It does just have to be a subscription block. But what this does is, you know, you can parse out these comments into your API with a module. So let's say you get api.drupal.org, it pulls in all these comments. So it's just a good thing to document what you're actually doing here. Next, because we're going to be altering a form, there's a specific hook that we're going to call. You should get familiar with this if you're going to be altering forms, but it's called hook form alter. We're going to look it up at drupal.org or api.drupal.org and just get the signature here. So you'll see this is the actual hook that you call, and it needs 3 arguments passed into it, right? The form state, the form ID. Right, so we're going to go back to Komodo, and we're going to create a function, and hook, you always replace hook with your module name, so SN override, that's what we're going to be doing here, and we're going to DSM the form, just to see what it is we're talking about here. That's why we want anonymous users to be able to see it, because we're going to be working with Devel. So, now that we have that saved, we have to go back to our site, and sure enough, we have to log in. Actually, logging in is for chumps. What we'll do is we'll enable SN override. And you know what? It's already been enabled because we're getting the DSM already. I was playing with it before, so that's why it's enabled, so no need to worry about that. Otherwise, we would have just gone in, enabled the module, and then we would have started seeing all these DSM messages. So I don't actually have to run enable override. So you'll notice we put one line of code in for DSM the form, thinking that we would get a DSM for the TWD Sandbox newsletter from Simplenews, but we're actually getting 5 different DSMs here. That's because there are 5 different forms on this page. So one of the first things that you'll notice is we actually have to specifically target which form that we're going to be overriding. Right now, if we went into our module, we started typing in some custom code, we would be affecting every form on the site. So in order to target our specific, what we can do is DSM form underscore ID. Let's get the IDs for all the forms. I mean, you can just pull it right out of the array from the form itself, but it's just nicer when you're actually using the actual ID itself, the ID variable. What I mean by that is you can go into the array and you can pull the attribute #ID Simplenews -block -form, but it's nice to actually pull that out of the variable. It just makes it a little bit more reliable. So we're going to create an if statement here. So if $form ID is equal to, and you'll see this is actually, so it's passed in by an argument. That's what we're actually, or a parameter. That's what we're, oh sorry, argument. That's what we're actually using. That's what we're calling. And the double equal sign is PHP for, you know, is equal to. If it were 1, you'd be changing the value of form ID. So is equal to, put that in quotes. Right, we're going to DSM the form now, and this will make sure that it's working. So what this is saying is, you know, only affect our Simplenews form. Let's reload this. Scroll up, and we're only getting 1, right? We're only affecting one form. Good. So next, what we want to do here is we actually want to change. First things first. Let's. For those that all they want to do is just change the actual button from save to subscribe, because there's a lot of requests to do that. You'll see here under submit, you have a type submit and you have a value of save. If you looked at the Forms API and you go down to, you're going to go down to special, you're going to see submit here is an attribute for buttons. Sorry, I'm trying to get them on the same side. So submit, right? You'll see these are the attributes that they're specifically for, and then you'll see that the value is actually something that's being passed in, right? So you just want to change that. All you want to do is actually change this value of save, so that the type for the submit button is still submit, but now it will say subscribe. So in here, what you're going to do is you're going to have one line of code, and it's simply going to be $form submit value is equal to, right? So the reason why this works, the form value is being passed in by reference. We don't have to pass it back, so any changes that we make automatically get passed back. And just like we looked in our structure, submit #value. We didn't have that in our code, so that's good to see. We checked it out. Submit #value is equal to subscribe. Save that. Go back to our site. Hit reload, and now the button says subscribe. So that's all you wanted to do to override your Simplenews block. You could end the tutorial here. But if you're looking to actually remove these radio buttons, let's go ahead and let's do that. So we have to add our. We took out our DSM, so let's add our DSM back. Save that. Reload the page here. So you actually have to look in to find out where, I mean, if you didn't know where you were looking, you just kind of open these up, look to see where your radio buttons are coming from. They're actually coming from action. So the type of radios, the default value is subscribe, and then you have some options. We don't want any of that. So the first thing that you want to do that's cleanest to make sure you don't miss anything, is to actually do something that's unset. We're going to unset the form action. Right? So that's going to clear everything out. And the reason why you do that is you can go in, you can change these actions as they exist, but if you forget something, it could be confusing as to why things aren't working properly. If you just unset it completely, do a clean uninstall and do a clean bring all the information that you want back in cleanly, you'll save a lot of headaches. So you'll notice here we don't have the radio buttons for subscribe or unsubscribe. You might think this would be it, that's all you wanted to do, but the problem with this is those buttons passed in an actual value to the module so that it knew people were subscribing or unsubscribing. So because you removed them, the module wouldn't know. It might know because of the code, but you could end up breaking things. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that that default value is passed back in. So we're going to do that by actually recreating those fields. So we're going to go recreate action, and we're going to need 2 here. So we're just going to leave them blank, and we're going to look at forms.api to figure out what it is that we need. Right? So you need type and value. So let's go back to forms.api. And so in terms of a type, this is the attribute that will actually define what it is that you had there. So before, if we looked at it, they had type and it was radios. So that's why there were 2 radio buttons over there. What you actually need to do is you need to redefine that type. So type is actually going to be a value now. That's going to be passed in. It's going to be a default value, and you'll notice that value doesn't work for any of these except for pound value. And when you click on pound value, you'll see it's used to set values that cannot be edited by the user. So a default value. So before they could do subscribe, unsubscribe, now they can just do subscribe. So we have to change that type so that it's a value and give it the value. So, and you'll notice in our code, it's a little bit confusing, I know, but playing with Forms API, you quickly start picking these things up. So we're going to change the type. Oops, sorry, this should be type. So type is equal to value, right, that we saw in forms.api, and then our value is actually equal to subscribe. And what I didn't show you is how we know that. So let's go ahead and go DSM on the form, and we're going to get it before we change anything. So let's go ahead and let's save this, and let's reload this. So I can show you why the default value is subscribe. So this is the form before we change anything. So you'll see the default value is subscribe. And I mean, you could have gone in and changed type just to value, and you wouldn't have had necessarily an issue, but it's not a good way to do things. You want to do things clean, right? So now when we go back in, you're going to see we're going to get, sorry, what are we looking for? Looking for action. Action is down at the bottom now. Action, value is subscribe, just like action, value is subscribe, right? So that's why we do that. So when you reload it, form still looks the same, but now you have a subscribe button, and you know that you're passing in the default value of subscribe. Pretty cool. So again, if you were happy with the way that this form now looked, you could just leave this and that's it. But we want to go just a little bit further, and we would like to go into, and we want to create an actual button, an image button, as opposed to the submit, actual old school looking button. And we wanted to add some JavaScript so that there was, it looked a little bit cooler instead of this blank one with a label outside of it. So when you click in and click out, we can go ahead and we can do that, but that's actually going to come in tutorial number 2, Simple News number 2. So if you like this, please leave a comment, let me know. I think I might install 5-star, just get people to start rating these, just so that I know, have a general feel. Maybe it's a lot easier than writing comments. But those that have provided feedback, thanks very much, appreciate it. Let me know if this helps you. Try to move pretty quickly because there's a lot to cover when you're dealing with module development. So just to recap, I mean, we downloaded and we installed Simple News. Realized that it's not the form that's actually being passed into this block, so we can't modify it. Had to do it through custom development. We did that by creating our override module. To finalize this, if you were done, you would obviously take out these DSMs and you'd have an overwritten form. If you want to take it one step further, make it super cool and add in an image button and add in the JavaScript, we'll do that in tutorial 2 of 2. Yeah, that's it. So hopefully this helps. Drop me a line, let me know. Any questions, I'm more than happy to help out. But that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.